Stop everything you're doing and listen, not with the ears of logic, but with the ears of spirit. For I am about to say something that will dissolve decades of striving in a single flash of recognition. What if money has never been missing from your life at all, but it was your word, your decree, your divine speech that was absent, muted, or diluted by fear, and in its silence the substance of your wealth remained unformed, untouched, unclaimed, like gold dust suspended in the air, waiting for the sound that would gather it into visible supply. So many run in circles, asking where their money is, why their business hasn't grown, why their bank account is silent. But the real question is, what have you said today in faith? What law have you spoken? What sentence have you launched into the ethers with conviction so complete that even heaven must obey? For it is written, "Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee." And yet how few decree, how few speak as kings. How many whimper instead of declare, asking God to remember them as if they were beggars and not beloved co-creators of the infinite plan. I say to you now, with absolute spiritual authority, you are not broke, you are not behind, you are not forgotten, you are unspoken, you are unvoiced, you are a vault that hasn't been opened because you have not yet realized that the key is your own tongue. You stand in a field of invisible gold and cry about famine, never noticing that the word in your mouth is the rain that makes the field yield, the flame that melts the gold, the wand that calls the riches out of the invisible and into the visible with perfect, rhythmic, divine precision. Money is not missing, it is listening. There is gold dust in the air for you. There are riches stored in invisible places with your name etched upon them in eternal light. And the only thing separating them from your hand is the decree you have not yet spoken. So begin with me now, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, but now, in this breath, in this holy moment of recognition. Say it with me. There is gold dust in the air for me. Large sums of money come to me now, under grace, in perfect ways. Say it again, not as a wish, but as a law. Not as a hope, but as a hammer that breaks the stone wall of limitation and releases the river of your appointed good. And know this, every time you speak from truth, you withdraw from your divine inheritance. Every time you speak lack, you walk past your own treasure. The world will tell you that words are soft, but I tell you that words are substance, words are seed, words are law. And when spoken with spiritual authority, they command the seen and the unseen to move, to yield, to appear, to deliver. You are not here to beg. You are here to reign, and you reign with your word. Let me tell you the truth, beloved. Money that is chased runs faster than your feet can follow. Money that is worshipped grows wings and flies from your grasp. Money that is hunted like prey hides behind every shadow of fear you project. Because money, like all divine substance, does not respond to panic, nor to pursuit, nor to pressure, but only to principle. And the great principle is this: whatever you chase, you admit you do not have. And what you confess as absent, you repel from your life by law, for the law is exact and cannot be mocked. It reflects not your desires, but your declarations. And so the one who says, "I need more money," is testifying before the court of spirit that he is outside of supply. And spirit, being lawful, confirms his claim with delay. You must understand the spiritual mathematics of lack. It begins not in the wallet, but in the word. It begins not in the economy, but in the echo of what you say when you are alone with your thoughts, when the bills are on the table, when the figures don't add up, and the voice of fear rises like a false prophet saying, "You'll never have enough." And if you echo that voice instead of rebuking it, you consent to the curse. And the moment you consent, the game is lost, for you have given dominion to fear, and fear is the great saboteur of supply. I have said many times, and I say again, man can only receive what he sees himself receiving. And I add now, he only receives what he speaks as law. The man who chases money is under the hypnosis of appearances. He looks at what others have and decides that if he runs fast enough, brands smart enough, hustles long enough, he will catch up, never realizing he is sprinting in the opposite direction of divine supply. For divine supply does not flow through panic, but through position. And your position is not on the ground begging, it is on the throne declaring. The man who knows his supply is spiritual walks differently, speaks differently, breathes differently. He wakes up and says, God is my instant and inexhaustible supply, and all channels are now open. And because he has spoken it, because he has dared to align his lips with eternal truth, the universe, which is only ever waiting for a clear instruction, begins to move. Let me give you a living parable, for this is not theory. This is testimony. There was a woman who came to me with tears in her eyes, a handful of coins, and a heart full of worry. She said, I have nothing but 7 cents. I told her, speak to the 7 cents. Bless them. Tell them they are seeds. Call them the beginning of millions. Say, every dollar I spend comes back multiplied under grace. And she obeyed, not with logic, not with proof, but with the childlike boldness of faith. Within days, her situation began to change, not because of hustle, not because of strategy, but because she no longer chased money. She commanded it. When you chase money, you kneel before it. When you speak with divine authority, you lift it to its rightful place, as servant, not master. And here lies the secret so many miss. Money is not your God. It is your messenger. It obeys voice, not volume. It responds to rhythm, not reasoning. It flows through decree, not desperation. So I ask you now, where in your life have you been running after what you should have been speaking into form? What doors have you pounded on when all that was required was to say, divine substance opens every gate for me now? What fortunes have you delayed by imagining they live outside of you, when the truth is, your next fortune is as close as your next declaration? You must stop chasing. You must stop confessing lack. You must stand still in the silence and speak like one who remembers where they come from, and where you come from is not poverty, is not hardship, is not limitation. You come from God, and God is unlimited supply. Speak it. Claim it. Live as if it were already done, for in the realm of the Spirit it is. Let me now lead you to the mirror of truth, and as I hold it before you, I ask that you remove the garments of doubt, lay down the garments of striving, release the ragged robes of self-pity and false modesty, and look into the glass, not with human eyes, but with spiritual sight, for you shall not see a struggler, nor a victim, nor one who is behind in life, but you shall see, if you dare to look long enough, a radiant being formed from the fabric of divine supply, fashioned by infinite intelligence, sent forth not to beg, not to borrow, not to chase, but to speak, to decree, to become. And I tell you plainly and without apology that you are already the millionaire you seek, not in some distant future built by external labor, but in this very now, formed in spirit, clothed in power, and waiting only for your spoken word to call it forth from the unseen into the seen, from the eternal into the immediate, from the invisible storehouse into visible form, and all that delays it is the lie you keep telling about who you are. For what is a millionaire, truly? Is it a man who accumulates digits on a screen? Or is it a soul who walks in unshakable knowing that wealth is his birthright, that abundance is his atmosphere, that gold responds to his command because he no longer identifies with the dust of the ground, but with the fire of divine speech? When I say, you are the millionaire, I do not flatter, I do not predict, I reveal. And when I say, you just haven't spoken it yet, I do not condemn, I do not rebuke, I instruct, for every man carries within him the scroll of his own fortune, and the scroll is not read by the eyes, but by the mouth. The scroll is not opened by effort, but by utterance. The scroll does not respond to fear, but to faith-filled declaration, spoken from the seat of authority, not the floor of lack. In the hidden corridors of the spirit realm, every spoken word becomes a form. Every form becomes a pathway. Every pathway becomes a harvest. And the one who daily says, I am rich, while the bank says, overdrawn, and the bills say, past due, and the outer voices say, be realistic, is the one who is building faster, deeper, and more eternally than the one who checks the market every hour, or the one who chases investors, or the one who toils without speaking divine supply into motion. For it is not the work that begins the wealth. It is the word, and until the word is spoken, no true riches can come. And if they come, they will fall through the cracks of identity that has not yet aligned itself with divine right. This is why the scripture commands, let the weak say, I am strong, for it does not say to beg for strength, nor wait for strength, nor feel strong first. It says to say it, for to say is to claim, and to claim is to own, and to own is to become, and the same applies to riches, to money, to fortune. Let the poor say, I am rich, and let the statement ring like a trumpet through the courts of heaven, and let it be spoken not once but daily, not softly but boldly, not in hope but in law, and the angels of supply shall rise, and the gates of increase shall open. And what was once a wish shall become a manifestation, and what was once a fantasy shall become a bank balance, and what was once imagined shall become inevitable. For the universe is a faithful servant to the voice that knows itself. So I ask you now, beloved, what have you been waiting to say? What truth have you delayed until the facts line up? What decree have you withheld because you feared it might sound foolish? Let me remind you, as only one who knows divine law can remind you. The word creates the fact. The word commands the condition. The word unlocks the provision. You are the millionaire. Not because you earned it, but because you are it. You are the millionaire, not because it was proven, but because it was spoken. So open your mouth and do not tremble. Open your mouth and do not edit. Open your mouth and say, I am the steward of divine wealth. I am the voice of prosperity in the earth. I am the millionaire of God's design. I am now supplied, supported, and surrounded by riches untold, under grace, in perfect ways. The lips of man are his courtroom, and every sentence passed becomes a life lived, for the tongue holds both the gavel and the sentence, the chain and the key, and the most dangerous chain ever forged. Forged not by devil nor tyrant, but by man's own misalignment with truth, is spoken casually, daily, without resistance or repentance, in grocery stores and bedrooms, in boardrooms and kitchens, in whispered tones or laughing disbelief. And those 5 words are, I can't afford it. I tell you now, and I tell you in sacred certainty, that these words have impoverished more children of God than any market collapse, any failed economy, any global war, or monetary reset, because these words do not describe a situation. They declare a belief, and beliefs backed by speech become law, and laws spoken long enough become identity, and identity becomes experience, and experience becomes reality. And so the one who says, I can't afford it, builds a fortress of lack around themselves with bricks of false humility and cement of fear, and then wonders why opportunity never knocks, why doors never open, why money passes them by and lands in the lap of those who speak differently, walk differently, expect differently. You see, the soul cannot create what the mouth refuses to claim, and the divine substance that wishes to pour through your life, like a river of gold dust and divine surprises, cannot override your free will, and your free will is exercised first and foremost through the spoken word. That is why it is written, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and I add now, poverty and wealth are in the vibration of the tongue, because the law does not respond to intention, it responds to language, and the man who says, I can't afford it, has just written a check in the realm of spirit for insufficiency. And the law, being exact, being obedient, being impartial, will cash that check and send him back more reasons to say it again, louder, more often, until he is trapped in the echo chamber of his own decree. And I say this not to condemn, but to awaken, because many of you were taught to say it by those who meant no harm, parents who echoed their parents, teachers who worshipped logic, friends who feared looking foolish. But no matter how well-intentioned, the phrase is poison to the millionaire soul, and it must be ripped out by the root and replaced with words of power, words of trust, words that build an inner bank before the outer bank appears. Instead of, "I can't afford it," you shall now say, "I am divinely provided for. If this is mine by divine right, it appears effortlessly. If it is not mine, something better comes in its place." You will not lie. You will not fake. You will not pretend. You will speak as one who knows that every dollar, every opportunity, every door is governed by spiritual law, and spiritual law cannot be broken. It can only be obeyed or delayed. So I urge you, the next time your eyes see a thing your bank account does not yet match, do not bow your head and mutter lack into the atmosphere. Do not train your subconscious to believe you are always behind, always excluded, always priced out. No, no, speak to your soul with fire. Say, "That is for me. If not now, then soon. If not this, then something better. I walk in wealth, and wealth walks toward me." And if you feel the tremble in your voice, good. That tremble is the breaking of the old spell. That tremble is the demolition of the poverty agreement. That tremble means you're no longer worshiping facts, you're bowing to truth, and truth is, you are always funded, always backed, always surrounded by divine supply, whether you see it or not, whether you feel it or not, whether your checking account agrees or not, because the truth is spiritual and the facts are temporary, and your word determines which one wins. You must become radical in your speech. You must become ruthless with your tongue. Never again shall you let "I can't afford it" leave your lips, for to do so is to betray your source, to insult your inheritance, to cut off the very flow you are praying to receive. Instead, bless the thing you desire. Bless the wallet that seems empty. Bless the hands that will deliver what you need. Speak wealth. Speak joy. Speak divine sufficiency. And you shall walk into a future where your outer world reflects your inner word, where your speech becomes substance and your declarations become deposits. Let me speak plainly, for there is no time for polite deception, no benefit in sugarcoating spiritual reality, no kindness in letting you believe that poverty has power, that struggle is sacred, or that financial lack is anything more than a hypnotic illusion upheld by fear, confirmed by speech, and multiplied through repetition. For I have been to the depths where the world said, "There is no way," and I have stood at the gates of "not enough," and spoken my way into divine overflow. And if I had listened to the facts, I would have starved. If I had bowed to the numbers, I would have perished. If I had let the silence of the mailbox, the coldness of the ledger, or the ticking of the rent clock define what was possible, I would have failed. But I did not consult appearances. I did not beg man. I did not plead with God. I spoke, and because I spoke, heaven moved. And because I declared, the invisible became visible. And because I stood in my word when everything around me trembled, I was delivered into a new order, a new system, a new atmosphere of abundance. And I say this to you now, not to impress you, but to liberate you, not to astonish, but to awaken, because the same power that delivered me is the power within your own mouth, your own voice, your own decree. And until you begin to speak as one who is funded by heaven, you will continue to live as one who is denied by earth. There was a moment, as there always is, a divine hinge, where the tide turns. Not because the bank changed or the economy shifted, not because someone gave me a secret or I stumbled upon a new strategy, but because I stood in my room with no one watching, and I said aloud with trembling but authority, "God is my unfailing supply. Large sums of money come to me quickly, under grace, in perfect ways." And I did not say it once. I did not say it casually. I did not say it for comfort. I said it as law. And every time fear rose up to mock me, every time the phone rang with demand, every time my logical mind whispered, "You're lying," I spoke it again, louder, clearer, slower, as one pounding a gavel in the courtroom of reality, and my voice did not shake. Heaven was already aligned. But my voice shook me. It shook the structure of unbelief within me. It shook the false foundations of material dependency. And I began to see the invisible hand of supply reaching toward me from places I had not considered, through people I had never met, with timing I could not predict. And one by one the debts were dissolved. One by one the payments arrived. One by one the channels opened, and none of it came from the plan of man, but from the word of spirit, spoken in rhythm with divine order. You see, lack is never about numbers, it is about agreement. The moment you agree with poverty, you give it permission to stay. But when you revoke the agreement by speech, when you sever the contract by decree, when you rise in the name of divine law and say, "No more shall I affirm limitation, I now declare my oneness with infinite supply," then the entire structure begins to shift, because the universe responds not to your desperation, but to your dominion, not to your longing, but to your language, not to your circumstance, but to your certainty. And it is not certainty in yourself that you need. It is certainty in God, certainty in law, certainty that when you speak what aligns with divine truth, all of nature, all of timing, all of form must rearrange itself to obey your word, because the word is not yours alone. It is the creative force of the Most High moving through your human breath, and once spoken in faith, it cannot return void, for it is written, "So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it." And if that is true for God, and you are one with God, then it must also be true for you. So if you are in lack today, speak. If you are in doubt today, speak. If the cupboards are bare and the bills are rising and the job has vanished and the friends have withdrawn and the night is cold and the news is loud and the logic is screaming, still speak. Speak in defiance of the shadow. Speak in contradiction to the trend. Speak like one who knows something the world has forgotten, that every miracle begins with a word, that every fortune begins in the mouth, that every harvest begins with a sentence planted in the soil of silence and watered by the repetition of truth. Speak it now with me, beloved. I am no longer in agreement with lack. I am a millionaire in divine mind. I am one with infinite wealth. All that is mine by divine right now appears. I walk in unexpected income, perfect timing, and divine provision. My supply is endless. My speech is law. My wealth is here. And now I must tell you the great misunderstanding that binds many good and well-meaning seekers of truth in cycles of striving without receiving, of praying without possessing, of working hard in the outer while remaining empty within. And that misunderstanding is this: that wealth is a place one arrives, a goal one finally conquers, a moment in time where numbers align and bills disappear, and the check finally clears, and the digits shift, and then, only then, one dares to feel secure, to breathe fully, to trust again, to rest. And I say no, I say with divine certainty and metaphysical clarity that this is not wealth at all. This is not abundance. This is not the rhythm of riches. For true wealth does not arrive, it emerges. It is not something you build outside. It is something you release from within, and until you release it, until you align with it, until you speak it rhythmically like a drumbeat that never ceases and never apologizes and never misses a step, you will continue to chase wealth like a phantom on the horizon, always running, never catching, always watching others rise while you doubt your right to stand tall in your divine inheritance. Millionaire consciousness is not a number, it is a frequency, it is a tone, it is a melody in the soul that says, without a shred of evidence and without a moment of doubt, I am rich because I am one with God, and God is the source of every good and perfect gift. And because I speak in harmony with divine law, wealth flows to me as effortlessly as breath, as rhythmically as the tides, as predictably as sunrise. And you must understand now, once and for all, that the spoken word is not a magical chant to manipulate matter. It is a tuning fork for the soul, and when you strike it daily, morning by morning, night by night, in moments of stillness and seasons of storm, you begin to shape your atmosphere into a temple of wealth. You begin to build momentum, not by pushing, not by forcing, but by vibrating in alignment with the truth that all is yours now. Not someday, not soon, but now. That is why Scripture commands, "Sing unto the Lord a new song." Not just because song pleases God, but because song tunes the singer, it reorganizes the cells, it dissolves the fear, it breaks the hypnosis of struggle, and lifts you into the consciousness of divine certainty. And I tell you now, your declarations must become your new song. Your affirmations must become your rhythm. Not spoken once in desperation, but spoken daily in devotion. Not performed to get something, but practiced because you already have it in divine mind, and your only task is to receive it by speaking it, expecting it, and walking in it, like one who knows that the invisible is more powerful than the visible, and the spiritual is more solid than the material, and the word is more permanent than any bank statement, any job, any economy. So begin your day not with anxiety, but with authority, not with checking your phone, but with checking your tone, the tone of your mouth, the tone of your expectation, the tone of your spiritual command, and say aloud before you take one step, "I am in rhythm with divine wealth. Money flows to me richly, rapidly, and repeatedly. Every step I take is blessed with surplus. Every word I speak is backed by law. I do not chase, I attract. I do not strive, I receive. I do not beg. I command in love, and it is done." Say it while brushing your teeth. Say it while pouring your tea. Say it in the car, in the shower, in the hallway, at the red light. Say it not to convince God, but to convince yourself, for your soul must hear your faith more loudly than it hears your fear. And the more you speak, the more you harmonize, and the more you harmonize, the more you magnetize, and the more you magnetize, the more wealth must appear, because wealth, like all creation, is obedient to rhythm, and the word, once made flesh, cannot return void. And in the evening, as you lay down your head, do not rehearse what is missing, rehearse what is moving. Say aloud, even if the room is dark and the bills are due and the mind is weary, "Divine supply never sleeps. Angels are arranging my wealth even now. I go to sleep in praise. I wake up in prosperity. I am the temple of millionaire consciousness." And let that be your lullaby. Not worry, not math, not memorized fears, but rhythmic truth, flowing through your breath, forming a new frequency around your life. And I promise you, by divine principle and metaphysical law, that the outer must shift, it must conform, it must reflect the rhythm you have established within. And the day will come, suddenly and without apology, where what you see will match what you have been saying, and the world will call it luck. But you will know it was law. There once was a woman, not famous, not powerful in the eyes of men, not surrounded by wealth, nor born into prestige, but a woman who, in her stillness, heard the truth that escapes so many, even the wise. And when she heard it, she did not argue, she did not delay, she did not consult the opinions of the world or seek reassurance from those bound by logic and limitation. She simply believed it, and having believed it, she began to speak it, not once, not twice, but daily, steadily, rhythmically, in season and out of season, like the striking of a sacred bell, like the heartbeat of a soul waking up to its inheritance. And this was her word. Unexpected doors fly open. Unexpected channels are free. Large sums of money come to me now, under grace, in perfect ways. She did not say it to impress. She did not say it to convince. She said it because it was the law. She said it because it was truth. She said it because her spirit recognized the tone of heaven, and her voice had finally aligned with it. And I tell you, she spoke it while sweeping her kitchen floor. She spoke it while opening unpaid bills. She spoke it when her car would not start and her landlord sent warnings. She spoke it not to mask her fear, but to evict it, not to pretend she had money, but to prophesy that supply was already hers in the invisible and must, by law, break through the visible in perfect time, through perfect channels, by perfect design. And one day, after 33 days of unwavering word, of radical refusal to speak anything contrary, of praising the unseen as if it were already here, she received a letter from a legal office she had never contacted, a family estate she had long forgotten, and within it a statement, a transfer, a miracle on paper. $10,000 released to her, not by striving, not by effort, not by networking, but by divine orchestration, all because she had spoken and therefore summoned, declared and therefore delivered, aligned and therefore received. Now some will say, that was luck, and others will ask, what did she do to make that happen? And still others, desperate to maintain their illusions of control and their worship of hard labor, will try to reduce her miracle to coincidence. But I say to you, there is no coincidence in the kingdom. There is only consequence, the consequence of the spoken word, the consequence of spiritual law, the consequence of faith that refuses to fold. And if this woman, unknown by name but mighty in truth, could speak into form her supply from the silence of her kitchen, how much more can you, who have heard this word now, who have been handed the formula, who have been given the seed, how much more can you do if only you would speak, not once, not on Sundays, not when you feel good, but daily, rhythmically, as law, as command, as birthright? You must understand, the miracle was not the check. The miracle was the rhythm. The miracle was the refusal to break agreement with truth. The miracle was the moment her tongue stopped repeating the vocabulary of poverty and began declaring the melody of divine provision. This is not just her story. It is the blueprint. It is your instruction. It is the echo of heaven's design, waiting to be reproduced through your voice, through your conviction, through your unwavering daily song. Let the story be a mirror. Let the outcome be your permission. Let the word now take root in your soul and say with me, unexpected doors fly open. Unexpected channels are free. Large sums of money come to me now, under grace, in perfect ways. Say it again, and again, and again, until the walls hear it, until the soul believes it, until the earth yields it. For it is not your effort that brings supply. It is your alignment. It is your word. The world you see is not solid. It is not permanent. It is not final. It is, at most, an echo, a reflection, a residue of what has been spoken into it. The chairs you sit in, the buildings you enter, the money you count, the names on checks, the logos on your phone, the fabric of your clothing. All of it began not with effort, not with matter, not with resources or machines or labor, but with word. Someone said it, someone saw it in spirit, named it in voice, and the universe, obligated by divine law, obedient to vibration, moved in response. Nothing is born of silence, except when that silence is filled with expectancy and declaration. Every atom dances to the voice that commands it. Every form yields to the force of faith-filled sound. And when the word goes forth, wrapped in rhythm, charged with certainty, soaked in spiritual law, it does not just travel, it creates, it constructs, it legislates. I tell you plainly, and I speak not in poetry, but in power, that your words do not float idly into the atmosphere. They are not neutral sounds. They are agents, they are assignments, they are blueprints sent into the unseen to shape what is seen. My word shall not return void, saith the Lord, not because the word is hopeful, but because the word is law. And if God himself speaks nothing into something, and you are made in his image, then you too must learn to wield your voice, not as conversation, but as creation. The mouth is the lamp, the sentence is the spark, the declaration is the command. Your entire reality bends itself to the sound of your daily vocabulary. Do you understand, beloved, that your finances are listening? Your bank account, though digital, has ears. Your business, though unseen in spirit, has structure. Your clients, your opportunities, your checks and contracts and miracles, they are not elusive, they are responsive. But they respond not to desperation, not to begging, not to tears or tantrums or timelines. They respond to word, and not any word, but the word spoken as law, the words spoken in alignment, the words spoken without contradiction. Picture this if you must. You are walking through a field, empty to the eye, silent to the ear. But when you speak, when you say, I am rich, when you say, God is my instant and endless supply, when you say, large sums of money come to me now, under grace, in perfect ways, it is as if you drop seeds made of gold into the earth beneath your feet. Each word, a seed. Each sentence, a blueprint. And though it looks empty still, and though you see nothing on day 1, and though day 5 may bring mocking winds or silence, the law is at work underground. The spiritual soil is responding. The unseen servants are moving. The manifestation is germinating. And if you do not dig up the seed with doubt, if you do not uproot the promise with fear, if you do not choke the soil with sarcasm or realism or any false gospel of being practical, then that field will rise up in your favor, and the supply that once seemed distant will come rushing in like a tide obeying its moon. You see, the tongue is not ornamental. It is not a tool for gossip or complaint or commentary. It is a wand. It is a staff. It is a divine instrument of vibration and law. Use it as such. Do not speak as a beggar. Do not speak as a doubter. Do not speak as one who merely hopes. Speak as one who knows, who rules, who reigns. Say aloud, even now, and feel the world shift beneath your feet. My word is law. My word is wealth. My word moves mountains and multiplies money. Say it until your atmosphere adjusts. Say it until your countenance changes. Say it until angels are dispatched, channels open, delays dissolve, and the impossible is reduced to a simple next step. Do not ask if it works. That is not the question. The question is, are you working it? Are you speaking daily, rhythmically, lawfully? Are you decreeing even when it looks like nothing is happening? Are you consistent, confident, clear? Because if you are, then the forces unseen are already obeying. The storehouse is already unlocking. The pipeline is already forming. And your wealth is not in the distance. It is in the declaration. Speak again and do not stop. For the word never fails. The law never returns void. The mouth aligned with heaven becomes the master of matter. And you, dear listener, are no longer waiting. You are creating. Let me tell you now what your fear never wanted you to hear, what your logic couldn't comprehend and your anxious thoughts never dared to believe. Let me say it plainly, not to inspire, but to awaken. You are not behind, you are not late, you are not disqualified, you are not abandoned, and you are certainly not cursed. What you call delay is often only disalignment. What you call waiting is often just a pause in your own vocal authority, and what you call misfortune may, in truth, be nothing but the moment before your spoken word takes form. You see, the great tragedy is not that people don't have what they need. It's that they haven't caught up with what's already been decreed for them in spirit. Supply is not somewhere out there, waiting for you to climb to it, or hustle into it, or earn your way through some desert of hardship and doubt. Number your supply has been waiting on you, waiting for your word to activate the law, waiting for your agreement with divine principle, waiting for your soul to stop begging and start reigning, waiting for your vibration to match its rhythm so it can finally move from the invisible into the visible and manifest on your behalf with grace, ease, and divine precision. There are realms, rich, full, overflowing realms, of answered prayer, of released provision, of stored wealth, of divine compensation that have been circling you, orbiting your life, waiting only for the signal to descend. And that signal is not time, not effort, not even fasting or striving or giving more to prove you're ready. That signal is the word, and the word only works when it is spoken with faith. The mouth is the key, the sound is the bridge, the tongue is the throne, and until you speak what is true in spirit, as though it were already manifest, the gate stays shut, not because God withholds, but because law cannot override your voice. You are not waiting for God to bless you. God is waiting for you to authorize the blessing through bold, rhythmic declaration. Before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear, says the word in Isaiah 65:24, and yet many still cry out, why hasn't it come? But that verse tells you something remarkable, something wildly liberating, something disruptive to every lie of delay and lack. That supply responds to speech, not time. It is voice activated, it is tone dependent, it is shaped by rhythm and magnetized by certainty. And if you say, I am ready, but speak like a beggar, speak like a victim, speak like someone hoping instead of declaring, then what you are actually doing is sending mixed messages to the divine machinery that is trying to deliver your wealth, but cannot until you lock into spiritual coherence with the reality you say you desire. Imagine it now, a train, long and loaded with every good thing you've prayed for, every check, every opportunity, every connection, every healing, every form of wealth you've glimpsed in vision or longed for in the quiet ache of the night. But it is not in the distance, and it is not on its way in 10 years. It is already circling, already dispatched, already waiting at the station of your soul. And all it needs to pull in is the confirmation of your word spoken today, not next week, not when things look better, not when the mood improves, but today, because the word is the track and the station and the conductor and the invitation all at once. You do not chase it. You board it with the language of faith. So instead of saying, I hope it happens, say, it is happening now. Instead of saying, I'm just waiting on the Lord, say, the Lord has already released it, and I now align with it. Instead of measuring time, measure truth. And the truth is this: you are not late. You are not stuck. You are not waiting. You are perhaps just one bold, faith-filled, uncompromised, heaven-backed word away from stepping into the flow that has been waiting for you all along. So say it with me now. Say it out loud as a decree, not a wish, as a verdict, not a prayer. My supply is present. My wealth is active. My good is here. I no longer wait. I speak. I receive. I rejoice. And as surely as the sun rises, so too shall your wealth break through. Now we come to the pivot point where many fail, not because they lack faith, not because they lack desire, and certainly not because they are not worthy, but because they have remained in a posture of asking, requesting, petitioning, pleading, instead of standing, declaring, decreeing, and taking dominion over the very thing they were born to command. And let me be clear as the light that separated day from night when the first word was spoken in Genesis. The realm of the miraculous does not respond to requests, it responds to rulership. The word does not bow to begging. Divine law does not move because you cried, it moves because you declared. Asking is a beautiful doorway to relationship, yes, but you cannot live at the door forever. At some point, you must step through and take your place as a speaker of truth, as a legislator of reality, as a son or daughter of the Most High, whose very voice is the key to their kingdom. When you say, please God, give me more money, you are operating from separation. You are rehearsing the belief that God is far off, that wealth is withheld, that your status must be upgraded through divine whim rather than divine right. But when you say, I am wealth, I am supply, I am the channel through which abundance flows, you are not just using affirmations. You are stepping into the vibrational throne room where decree is not only allowed but required. And from that place, reality bends. It bends not because you manipulated it, not because you outworked anyone, not because you networked your way into favor, but because you spoke what already existed in the eternal, and you did so without apology, without qualification, without shrinking into emotional instability, and without explaining to the world why your voice should be permitted to create. You stopped asking, you started declaring, and the moment you did, everything changed. Hear me now and hear me well. Speech is positional. When you speak from asking, you are speaking from beneath. When you speak from authority, you are speaking from the throne. The entire spiritual path, at least the part that deals with manifestation, is not about becoming more worthy or more ready or more perfect. It is about learning how to speak from the right seat. This is why Jesus didn't beg the storm to stop. He spoke to it. This is why he didn't ask Lazarus to try and come back. He commanded him forth. And it is why you must stop narrating your lack, stop justifying your delay, stop confessing your fears to everyone who will listen, and instead open your mouth with the clarity of heaven and issue the verdict of prosperity from your own courtroom. There is a reason why Job 22:28 says, "Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee," and not, "Thou shalt ask for a thing and wait hopefully." A decree is not a wish. A decree is a spiritual legal action. It sets creation in motion. It overrides resistance. It bypasses logic. It summons angels. It activates provision. And it builds momentum in unseen realms that your current circumstances cannot yet perceive. So if you're still saying things like, "I'm just waiting on God," I challenge you right now. Flip that phrase upside down. It's not you who's waiting on God. It's your wealth, your favor, your next level that's been waiting on you to speak the word, hold the tone, and stop doubting the mechanics of spiritual authority. Let this be your daily discipline. Declare before you feel it, declare before you see it, declare before the world gives you permission to declare it. Say, "I no longer ask for money, I align with money. I no longer beg for increase, I broadcast increase. I no longer seek favor, I radiate favor. The word is my currency, and I spend it freely on behalf of my highest good." Speak these things not once, not occasionally, not emotionally, but rhythmically, daily, boldly. Speak them until the word becomes flesh, until vibration becomes form, until the reality around you matches the revelation within you. And if ever the temptation arises to beg again, to shrink again, to plead with heaven like you are still an outsider looking in, remember this: you were born with the tongue of a king, the voice of a prophet, and the breath of divine intelligence itself. You are not a visitor in this house of abundance. You are an heir, and heirs do not ask. Heirs decree. Debt is not a number. It is a name you've accepted. It is a spell you have repeated in whispers and sighs and passing remarks. A silent covenant made with the belief that you are somehow always behind, somehow always owing, somehow always needing to catch up to a world that moves faster than your provision, richer than your wallet, louder than your own spiritual authority. And I tell you now, with the authority of divine law pulsing through my voice like fire through gold, that debt is not your identity. It is an impostor, a shadow cast by the words you've spoken in ignorance or fear or fatigue. And if you want to walk in the radiant light of supernatural provision, you must first tear the label from your chest and replace it with the truth of heaven's economy. You are never in debt. You are perpetually funded by the invisible deposit of the divine. For what is debt, really, if not a metaphysical misunderstanding of timing? It is the appearance of lack in one moment that blinds you to the flood that is already scheduled for the next. It is the illusion of absence before arrival. And what is speech then, if not the bridge between the two? You say you are in debt because a bill has arrived, because a balance is due, because a creditor has spoken louder than your faith. But I say unto you that creditor is no match for the credit of God, and your debt is no match for the deposit that exists in the unseen, waiting. No yearning to be claimed by the one who dares to speak in rhythm with the throne, to say not "I owe," but "I own," to say not "I lack," but "I claim," to say not "I can't afford," but "I am already in possession by divine law, and this shall appear now through divine channels, perfect timing, and supernatural alignment." You must understand this. The words, "I am in debt," bind your future like chains around a vault, sealing up the divine inheritance that was already encoded into your soul the moment you were spoken into form. You were not born to repay the world. You were born to radiate heaven. And heaven does not finance its emissaries with loans. Heaven endows. Heaven releases. Heaven opens windows where man builds walls. And if you would stop speaking the language of debt and start speaking the language of deposit, you would see your entire ledger catch fire with supernatural recalibration. Say it now and say it with the unshakable cadence of certainty. Debt is not your destiny. Debt is not your story. Debt is not your truth. Debt is a shadow on the wall of your consciousness, cast by the false light of fear. And I say to you, beloved, that you must no longer call yourself by names that heaven never gave you. You must no longer accept the world's vocabulary of lack and bondage as the language of your soul. For every time you say, I am in debt, you bind yourself to the realm of appearance, and you build a prison with your own breath. But when you rise up in the authority of the word and say, I am divinely funded, you tear open the veil and step into the treasury of the Spirit, where all things are paid in full before they even appear in time. I have said it before, and I will say it again. Your word is your wand, and you are either waving it over empty accounts and calling them cursed, or you are waving it over unseen supply and calling it forth with joy. The law knows no sarcasm. The law knows no sympathy. The law knows only obedience to the word. So when you say, I am broke, the law moves to confirm it. When you say, I can't afford that, the law closes the gate. When you say, I'll never get out of this debt, the law takes you at your word and waits until you change your speech. But when you say, this is not debt, this is a divine deposit in disguise, the angels of provision stand to attention. When you say, I am now compensated by the law of divine justice, the supply begins to circle. When you say, I walk in surplus, I dwell in overflow, I am the steward of great wealth, then the vault of heaven, which was never locked to begin with, begins to pour into every appearance of lack until the appearance itself is drowned in the glory of truth. There is no such thing as financial delay in the kingdom. There is only spiritual amnesia. You forgot who you were. You forgot that every dollar you require already exists in the divine field, already bearing your name, already seeking your voice as the tuning fork that calls it into form. So call it now, not with trembling, not with guilt, not with begging. Call it as one who has inherited the entire estate of heaven. Say, I do not carry debt. I carry destiny. I do not owe the world. I own the word. And the word says, my God shall supply all my need according to his riches in glory. Therefore, this so-called debt is nothing but a delay in my recognition. It is not a wait. It is a window. It is not a sentence. It is a signal. And now I speak the release. Speak it and speak it now. I am never in debt. I am always in flow. I am always in alignment. I am always in abundance. I now replace every false account with a divine deposit. I now replace every earthly invoice with a heavenly inheritance. I now speak the increase, the settlement, the freedom, and the overflow into perfect visibility. I do not beg, I decree. I do not fear, I fund. I do not serve the appearance, I serve the law, and the law obeys my word. There was a man whose hands were filled with beauty but whose pockets were always empty. A man who had given his life to painting visions no one had yet seen, to brushing color onto canvas with the quiet hope that someone, someday, would see what he saw and value it enough to exchange it for gold. But he had believed the lie that artists must starve, that beauty was not profitable unless approved by some distant, wealthy gatekeeper. And so he painted in hunger, both literal and spiritual, until the day came when he heard the law I now speak to you, that nothing of value begins with the outer, that no gallery, no critic, no patron can deliver your good unless you first speak it into divine motion, unless you declare your worth aloud until the angels themselves become your marketing agents, and the Spirit moves men and women to come to you by divine impulse, not worldly networking. This man, this artist, he turned away from the canvas for a moment and turned inward toward his God center, toward the infinite warehouse of supply that stands behind every human scene, and he began to speak, not to the world, not to buyers, not to investors, but to substance itself, to the divine intelligence that governs success and money and timing and audience. And he said with no doubt and no hesitation, I am now recognized. I am now paid. I am now supported in perfect ways. My art is loved. My art is funded. My art is in demand. I walk in divine contracts, and my income is increasing rapidly and beautifully by divine law. And he said this not once, not twice, but morning and night, and sometimes between brushstrokes. He said it even when the emails went unanswered and the phone stayed silent, because he understood what many never learn: that silence in the outer is no evidence of stillness in the spirit, that when you speak in alignment with divine law, the wheels of manifestation begin to turn even if your calendar remains blank for a season. For the law never fails, the word never returns void, and the God that hears in secret will reward you openly. 33 days later, without a single change in strategy, without a single cold pitch or gallery plea, a collector who had once visited his website months before sent a message offering to purchase 3 pieces for 5 figures each and to fund a private exhibition tour with full backing. And the man wept, not because he had doubted the law, but because he realized that it was never about earning. It was about enlarging the speech of his soul. It was about replacing the inner cry of, please choose me, with the declaration of, I have already been chosen. And now I say to you who paint, who write, who build, who dream, stop waiting for the world to see your value. Speak your value into the field of spirit. Call your supply by name. Say, my work is now funded. My gifts are now compensated. My name is now honored in the realm of wealth. I am in perfect agreement with divine income. Say it until the air bends around your breath. Say it until you feel the golden oil of certainty anoint your every word. Say it until the wealth that has always belonged to you cannot help but appear, because you are no longer waiting, you are no longer whispering, you are declaring with power, and the law must answer. Fear is not just a feeling, not just a tremble in the stomach or a tightening in the chest. It is a spoken magnet for misfortune, a declaration cloaked in worry that creates just as powerfully as faith, but in the opposite direction. For every time you say, what if it doesn't work out? Every time you mutter, I'm so scared of losing this, or whisper to yourself in secret, money always slips through my fingers, you are not merely expressing emotion. You are writing invisible checks in the currency of delay, lack, and sabotage, and those checks are never declined by the universe. They are always cashed by the spiritual bank you have ignorantly authorized through the fear-based word, because the law is no respecter of persons, it is only a respecter of vibration. And if you vibrate in fear, speak in fear, think in fear, act in fear, then fear becomes your God, and your results will kneel to it. There is a principle that most miss because they think fear is an internal storm to survive, rather than a spiritual assignment to transmute. But I tell you now, with the fire of heaven behind my voice, that fear must be cast out, not coddled, and the method is always the same. Speak against it boldly, rhythmically, audibly, until your inner climate shifts and the air within you no longer trembles, but stands still in power. For the word is your sword, and no thought, no feeling, has authority unless your tongue lends it power, and your speech is the gatekeeper of your fate. And every day you must ask, which reality have I authorized today? One of faith or one of fear? Psalm 27 asks, whom shall I fear? Not because fear doesn't knock, but because faith refuses to open the door. And you must do the same, declaring with total conviction, I refuse fear. I evict fear. I denounce fear in the name of the Christ within me. I am safe in my abundance. I am stable in my income. I am surrounded by angels of provision. I do not fear downturn, delay, or debt, for I am in covenant with divine supply, and the source within me is immune to chaos, recession, or circumstance. These are not positive thoughts. They are spiritual decrees, and they rewire your entire field of reception. Now listen closely. The most dangerous fear is the fear you don't speak, but still believe, the silent what if that lives in your eyes. the unspoken doubt that lingers beneath your affirmations like mold beneath fresh paint, and you must bring it into the light. Name it aloud and speak over it with word until it bows, until it dissolves, until it breaks. Speak. Though fear has knocked, it may not enter. Though doubt has risen, it may not stay. Though the voice of lack has whispered, I shout louder. I am provided for. I am fully funded. I am backed by all of heaven's treasury. I walk in a covenant of supernatural wealth. You are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of your emotions. You are not disqualified by your anxiety. You are simply being called higher, to a level of speech where fear finds no home, to a level of faith that is not reaction but dominion, to a place in consciousness where you no longer react to the noise of the world because your word has become louder than your worry, and your declarations are not just sentences. They are supernatural shields, flaming swords of light that guard your good, call in your riches, and silence every fear before it can speak again. So speak, and do not stop. Speak until fear flees. Speak until peace becomes your climate. Speak until wealth is the only frequency left. To create a life of visible wealth, one must first create a voice of invisible dominion, and that voice is not born from a single declaration uttered in passing or a hopeful phrase repeated without heat. It is forged in the rhythm of daily alignment, in the sacred consistency of speech that does not flinch when appearances contradict, in the ritual of word that becomes the soul's heartbeat and the mind's anchor. For habit is not simply repetition, it is consecration. And when you speak a sentence every day with divine authority, it becomes a pathway, a pipeline, a gravitational field that bends people, opportunities, and income toward your name, as surely as the sun calls flowers to rise. Millionaire affirmation habits are not a superstition, not a gimmick, not a game for spiritual dabblers or prosperity tourists. They are the spiritual scaffolding of the next version of you, the one who does not beg, the one who does not waver, the one who does not wait for money to knock, but opens the door each morning by saying, I am wealthy by divine law. I am rich in faith and funds. Large sums of money come to me now, under grace, in perfect ways. Every word I speak is money magnetized. Every sentence I sow returns to me in gold. These are not just positive words. They are spiritual forces dressed in syllables, commands wrapped in cadence, heavenly codes wearing human rhythm, and when spoken with boldness, they do not simply inspire, they instruct the invisible to become visible. And the key, the secret, the power of this practice is rhythm, not perfection, not eloquence, not drama, but rhythm, spiritual rhythm, divine timing kept by your own tongue, so that your inner world becomes like a metronome of faith, a drumbeat of declaration, a steady, constant symphony of truth that makes chaos impossible and lack illegal. For the enemy of your increase is not laziness, it is inconsistency, and the reason wealth hasn't found your address yet is not because you are unworthy or late or blocked, but because your signal is faint, your word is intermittent, your spiritual lighthouse blinks instead of blazing, and the ships of prosperity cannot dock until your light is steady and your word is unshaken. So how do you begin? You begin by tying your affirmations to something that cannot be forgotten, to waking, to walking, to eating, to driving, to brushing your teeth, not as a chore, not as a checklist, but as worship, as alignment, as your sacred priesthood before the altar of divine substance. And you say, without delay, without drama, money loves me, money obeys me. I am a faithful steward of vast riches. I give perfect service for perfect pay in a perfect way. I am trusted by the universe with great wealth, and I am generous, joyful, and fearless in its circulation. And you say it every day, and you say it every night, and you say it when doubt is loud, and you say it when results are silent, and you say it not to convince, but to command. Because every time you speak, you write code into your atmosphere, and that code becomes form, and that form becomes experience, and that experience becomes identity, and that identity becomes destiny. And if you will only commit, not to try, but to decree, not to wish, but to witness, not to hope, but to hammer this word into your field like a blacksmith shaping gold. Then your outer world must obey, because the law is never broken, only delayed, and the delay is always in the mouth of man, never in the vault of heaven. So I charge you now, set your timer, mark your calendar, tie your sentences to the sun and the moon, rise in the morning and speak, walk down the street and speak, stir your coffee and speak, fall into bed and speak, and do not say, I'll try. Say, it is done. For that is how millionaires are made, not by deals or tips or tricks or trends, but by tongues that do not tremble, and by hearts that dare to say, I am the wealth, I am the law, I am the rhythm of abundance incarnate. Speak then, and let the universe rise to obey. Now that the rhythm is set and the word has been spoken into a cadence of power, let us turn with courage and precision to the shadows that sabotage the tongue, not to condemn, but to correct, not to shame, but to shine divine order upon the errors that delay heaven's already prepared provision. For there are laws to this thing, and the law is not mocked, nor fooled by lip service, nor tricked by hollow repetition, nor swayed by frantic speech that wears the costume of belief but carries the scent of fear. And if a man or woman declares, I am rich, while secretly anchoring that phrase in the soil of doubt, confusion, or self-loathing, then they have sown good seed upon stone, and no harvest can come. Not because God withholds, but because the gatekeeper within has shut the gate with contradiction. One of the most common mistakes is speaking from lack, not law, uttering affirmations with the tone of a question rather than the cadence of a command, mouthing phrases like, money flows to me, while their heart whispers, but not really, while their mind scans the bank account for evidence, while their energy is still prostrate before appearances. For an affirmation spoken from lack is not an affirmation. It is a masquerade, and the law does not respond to costumes. It responds to consciousness. And the difference between the one who manifests swiftly and the one who spins in stagnation is not effort, but embodiment, not number of repetitions, but voltage of belief beneath the repetition, not mere words on the tongue, but authority in the spirit. Another subtle error, yet one that fractures the flow, is emotional contradiction. When one declares wealth but simultaneously nurtures inner resentment toward those who have it, when one says, I am wealthy, but secretly believes wealth is corrupt or dangerous or reserved for others more deserving, and so the word becomes divided against itself, a kingdom of confusion where the mouth prays increase but the heart casts judgment, and thus no door can open, no channel can remain clear, until the soul repents, not from moral sin, but from vibrational misalignment, and chooses to bless that which it desires instead of cursing it from envy or self-doubt. And what of imagination? Ah, here lies another often neglected pillar of power. Affirmations spoken without imagination are like letters mailed with no address. They travel nowhere, arrive nowhere, transform nothing, for the word was never meant to be mechanical, but mystical, not hollow but holy. And to speak without vision is to miss the mark entirely. For when I say, I am divinely wealthy, I do not merely move my lips. I see golden light. I feel the richness of freedom, the elegance of ease, the joy of generosity, the dignity of surplus, the smile of God upon my stewardship. I live it, taste it, hear it, wear it, until my subconscious bows and says, yes, mistress of the house, yes, steward of abundance, yes, keeper of the word. It is done, it is done, it is done. And so I offer this correction, this sacred refinement, this divine tuning of your tongue. Do not speak until you are ready to believe. Or better still, speak until you cannot not believe. Speak until every cell vibrates. Yes, speak until doubt is drowned in declaration. Speak until the old program crumbles, not because you wrestled it, but because you replaced it with something truer, stronger, purer, and more permanent. For the subconscious is not your enemy, it is your servant, and it does not care what you say. It only obeys what you feel as you say it. So feel it now, breathe it now, reclaim your place as the architect of your reality, not by force, not by frenzy, but by the sacred science of aligned speech. And remember, words without conviction are like tools left on the ground, full of potential, but powerless until picked up and used with skill, with clarity, with faith. You are not a beginner. You are not a beggar. You are not a victim of vibration. You are the voice. You are the word. You are the portal through which wealth flows. So correct your sentence, lift your tone, summon your faith, and speak not as one trying, but as one sent, as one chosen, as one appointed to declare and see it done. There comes a moment in every soul's financial transformation, a sacred interruption, a divine pivot, where the weary striving ceases, where the questions go silent, where the endless rehearsals of how will it come? Where will it come from? Am I ready? What if it doesn't? Are finally laid upon the altar of faith and burned in the fire of knowing, because the soul has remembered her protocol, the spirit has remembered its procedure, and the law has begun to move not from panic or pressure, but from peace, from posture, from the rhythmic obedience to a formula older than time itself. A fourfold spiritual blueprint that unlocks not just the mind, not just the bank account, but the very heavens themselves. Declare, rest, obey, receive. To declare is not to whisper, nor to wish, nor to throw words at the wall in hopes that something might stick. It is to stand in the throne room of the soul and say with full spiritual identity, "This is mine by divine right. I command it into form. I release it by word." It is the voice of Genesis speaking again through the individual, the "let there be" echoing from within you, not as metaphor, but as law, not as sentiment, but as spiritual infrastructure. And when this declaration is made from the high place of I am, not from the valley of I hope, it becomes a gavel of light slamming down in the courts of heaven, and angels move, and channels clear, and invisible substance begins its rapid and obedient descent into the visible. But once the word is spoken, truly spoken, it must be followed by rest. Not laziness, not apathy, not spiritual slouching, but rest, holy rest, the kind that testifies, "It is done." The kind of rest that doesn't check the bank account 3 times a day for proof. The kind that walks past unpaid bills and says, "I have already decreed your cancellation." The kind that does not ask God again and again for the same thing because it knows the order has already been placed, the package already shipped, and the delay in tracking is not a denial, but a test of stillness. The rest I speak of is not passive, it is active alignment. It is the confident silence of spiritual maturity. It is what the Lord meant when he said, "The Lord shall fight for you while you hold your peace." And it is this peace, this vibrational stillness, that becomes the gravitational field where all forms of good are drawn like metal to magnet, like rivers to valleys, like promises to prophets. Then comes obedience, not to outer hustle, but to inner impulse. For once you've declared and once you've rested, the divine blueprint begins to unfold in fragments. An urge to call someone, a thought to send an email, a nudge to shift a price, a dream that feels like instruction. Obedience is the act of responding to divine hints without needing the whole plan, of saying yes to the unseen, without arguing for understanding. And this obedience is not effortful, it is not desperate, it is not the grind of self-will, but the sacred cooperation with Spirit's lead. And when you trust these divine nudges, no matter how small or odd or inconvenient they seem, you are saying to heaven, "I'm ready to act as if my word is true." And the moment you act in agreement with your own decree, the energetic architecture begins to take form in the material world, and doors open, and funds appear, and support arrives, not because you earned it, but because you aligned with it. Finally, you receive, not with guilt, not with resistance, not with the self-sabotaging voice that says, "Is this too much?" or "Do I deserve it?" or "Will it last?" No, you receive with full arms, open heart, and lifted eyes, saying, "Thank you, Father. This is mine. This is right. This is holy. This is normal now." And when you receive in this way, gratefully, cleanly, expectantly. You do not block the flow, you increase it, and the same law that brought the blessing will bring its multiplication, and the same word that called forth the first 1,000 will call forth the next million, and what once felt like miracle will now feel like rhythm, and what once felt like breakthrough will now feel like protocol, and what once felt rare will now feel inevitable. Declare, rest, obey, receive. This is the formula. This is the rhythm. This is the protocol of divine wealth. And it does not belong to the few. It belongs to the aligned. It is not for the elite. It is for the elect. And if you are hearing this now, you are among them. Not because you hustled your way into blessing, but because you have remembered the pattern written into your spirit before you ever had a name. So begin again. Speak boldly. Rest completely, obey faithfully, receive joyfully. For the vault is open, the law is active, and your word has gone forth. It shall not return void. There is a cruel illusion, a spell of delay, that has bewitched countless souls who secretly believe they are being tested, punished, or forgotten by heaven because their outer pockets remain empty while their inner longing deepens. And yet the truth, bold and unyielding as the morning sun, is that you are not waiting for money. Money is waiting for your word. For heaven does not operate on time, but on tone. Not on dates, but on declarations. Not on effort, but on alignment. And the great tragedy of the age is not a lack of money, but a lack of men and women who will open their mouths in the fire of their lack and speak with authority anyway, who will shout into the void and say, "Let there be," not because they see the result, but because they know the law. And when I say no, I do not mean intellectual assent or hopeful parroting. I mean the kind of knowing that is seated in the belly, the kind that refuses to blink when the rent is due, the kind that keeps the posture of royalty even when the palace has not yet appeared. Money is not the master, it is the messenger, and like all spiritual servants, it responds to command, not confusion, to clarity, not compromise, to declarations rooted in dominion, not sentences poisoned with fear or self-doubt. And when you say, "I need more money," you activate lack. When you say, "When will it come?" you affirm absence. But when you say, "My supply is endless, my channels are open, my wealth is here now," you issue a decree that shakes the unseen, reroutes energy, and commands divine substance to take form. And yes, the timing may not match your ego's impatience. And yes, the form may not look like your limited blueprint, but that does not mean the word has failed. It means the word is forming, the angels are arranging, and the laws are unfolding in the background of appearance, just as a seed breaks the ground only after its invisible growth is complete. Stop saying you are waiting. Stop checking the calendar of doubt. Stop rehearsing the delays. That waiting room you think you're in is a lie, a mirage built by silence, by spiritual passivity, by the fear of sounding foolish, by the fear of being disappointed again. But let me be plain. Silence is not humility when it comes to divine law. It is rebellion, for heaven cannot confirm what you refuse to say, and no prayer, no fast, no vision board will override the supreme authority of the word on your own lips. For your tongue is the key, your mouth is the gate, and until you open it with power, nothing permanent can be released. For the kingdom responds to sound, to frequency, to uttered faith, and the one who says, "I will wait and see," will see nothing. But the one who says, "I speak it, I believe it, I receive it now," will see the windows of heaven fling wide. Do not say, "God is taking his time." God is not bound by time. God moves in word, not in years, not in wages, not in wishes, but in word. The moment you speak from alignment, not panic, not doubt, but alignment, things begin to move, doors begin to creak, people begin to remember you, emails begin to arrive, and opportunities that had been sleeping are awakened by the sound of your dominion. Time is not your master. Time is not your enemy. Time is your canvas, and your word is the paintbrush, and you must paint it daily with sentences of wealth, of now, of divine truth, saying not, "I hope it comes," but "It is mine now. It is appearing now. It is unfolding under grace in perfect ways. You say, I'm not seeing results. And I say, you're not speaking like a king. You say, it's been months with no change. And I say, the soil cannot yield until the seed is spoken in faith. The word does not return void. The law does not lie. But you must stop aborting your harvest with contradiction. One fear-filled phrase can uproot 10 days of declarations. One complaint can cancel a contract. One joke about being broke can reroute the river of riches that was headed your way. So watch your mouth, guard your gates, and above all, speak now, not later, not when the check clears, not when the email comes, but now. Say it now, claim it now, command it now. Money is not slow. Money is obedient. And it is waiting, right now, this very second, for a voice like yours to wake it up, to call it forth, to speak its name in the language of divine law. Will you be silent? Or will you rise in power and say, I am the wealth of God in motion. I am the mouthpiece of abundance. I am the decree that creation obeys. I am not waiting. I am commanding, and it is done. If you can say that, and mean it, you will see what others only dream of, because money was never waiting on your strategy. It was waiting on your sound. So speak, beloved, and do not stop. And now I tell you this, if you cannot name it, you cannot claim it, for what you will not decree, you will not receive, and what you dare not speak, you will never see, because everything, yes, everything, in the realm of divine supply begins with the utterance of a name. For the power to name a thing is the power to call it forth, to assign it shape, to designate its identity, to magnetize its substance, and this is not metaphor but law, not poetry but protocol. For did not the Lord bring every creature before Adam and say, name it? And what he named it, that it was, for in the kingdom of form, nothing becomes real until it is named in word. And so I say to you, name your income, not with trembling, not with apology, not with modesty masquerading as humility, but with the boldness of one who knows their words are not wishes, but weapons, their tongue not a decoration, but a key to the treasury of heaven. Do not say, I just want enough to get by, for heaven cannot confirm cowardice. Do not say, whatever God wants, as if the Father delights in confusion, for the will of God is abundance, clarity, sufficiency, multiplication. And you have not because you ask not, and you ask not because you dare not declare, and you declare not because you have been trained by fear to think that certainty is arrogance, and desire is danger, and spiritual power should be silent, passive, restrained. But I say, enough with the false humility, enough with the quiet lack, enough with the spiritual starvation disguised as virtue. The hour is now to speak, and to speak with fire, and to say, this is the figure, this is the flow, this is the amount I live in, circulate, and steward by divine right. Yes, pick the number. Yes, write it down. Yes, speak it aloud daily, 3 times if you must, not because repetition tricks the universe, but because repetition trains your consciousness. And your consciousness is the soil where the wealth must be planted. Say it with breath. Say it with rhythm. Say it with praise. Say it with thanksgiving. Say it as if it is already here, because in the realm of divine law, it already is. And if your mind argues, say it louder. And if your bank account mocks you, say it stronger. And if the past reminds you of your lack, say it clearer. You are not speaking to convince the world. You are speaking to align your spirit with the truth that already exists in the invisible, that already belongs to you in the eternal, and that already surrounds you in the atmosphere like gold dust waiting for your word to mold it into form. Don't ask how. Don't ask when. Those are questions for the carnal mind. Divine mind asks only this. What do you call it? Do you call it small? Do you call it delayed? Do you call it impossible? Or will you say, I call it in? I call in $10,000 this month. I call in $1 million this year. I call in a permanent river of revenue that flows regardless of human logic, personal history, or market fluctuation. And don't just speak the lump sum, speak the structure. Say, I receive $25,000 per month from known and unknown sources. I receive six-figure contracts from aligned clients. I receive daily payments that match the level of my spiritual assignment. The more specific you are, the more channels the law can activate, because a vague decree creates vague results, but a detailed word gives form to the formless and order to the unseen. Your income has ears, your money has memory, your supply is waiting for you to give it instruction. Stop being polite, stop being indirect, stop whispering your worth in rooms where you were called to roar. And remember, this is not greed, this is stewardship, this is not ego, this is identity, this is not fantasy, this is faith. You are not making something up, you are calling something forth, and it will come, not because you forced it, not because you manipulated it, but because you named it, you claimed it, and you spoke it as law. So today, before the sun sets, choose your number, choose your flow, choose your inheritance. And once you've chosen, do not entertain contradiction. Do not adjust for appearances. Do not shrink for fear of disappointment. Set it in stone, seal it with word, wrap it in thanksgiving, and then walk like it's done. Because in divine law, it is.